stand up for this.
Sir William Seal.
Chairman. Earlier, Mr. Chairman, the Honourable Annette King asked the Minister where was the regulatory impact statement for Part 2. The Minister responded that we should take his word for it, that nothing untoward will happen. And the image that came to mind, sir, was President Richard Nixon when he says, "I am not a crook, I am not a crook," and we all know what happened to him. Later on, sir, the Minister comes down to this House and shows some graphs to show how good a job he's been doing, trying to tell us that the supply of housing has increased under his ministerialship. But I have to say, sir, when he was so animated in that contribution, that all I could see was the image of somebody that needs to be in a straitjacket and not have anything to do with housing. Because
the member will resume his seat. I think the member has gone a little bit far there, and he should be more restrained in his comments. Sir William Seal.
The Minister asked this House, sir, to explain why there is a need for emergency on housing. I want to just spend a bit of time saying that, sir, because despite those graphs, we have today the average price of housing in Auckland at $1 million. Why is that? Because there is a short supply of housing. Short supply of housing, and we have an increasing population. Today, as of last year, we have the highest population increase since 1974. And so the Minister, I believe, is wrong when he brings those graphs down and says that he's been doing a good job. The only reason why house prices on average are over $1 million in Auckland is because they have not done their job in increasing housing supply. Why is it, sir, that since this government has been in power, the homelessness, people living in cars, has increased by 20%? That is why we are calling for a state of an emergency. Why is it that today we have 42,000 people living in cars, living in overcrowded positions? So Part 2, and I've heard Jerry Brownlee say this is about increasing the number of affordable housing. I don't understand how Part 2, which is about removing the rights of people, is going to be able...
Part 3.
Part 3 is going to be able to increase the supply of affordable housing. Part 3, however, is what ought to be happening. This is the part, sir, which discusses the exact number of houses that should be a target. Part 3, sir, is about having a plan to increasing supply. Nothing in Part 1 or Part 2 suggests that the supply of housing will increase. And so this is what needs to happen. The Minister says that his government is doing all it can, but the reality, sir, unless they address the supply of housing, unless they crack down on foreign speculators, unless they change also what the real purpose of Housing New Zealand ought to be, none of that will happen. The purpose of Housing New Zealand, sir, should have from the outset, was about helping people in need. They've changed that, and today, sir, it is because of that reason that we're seeing an increasing number of people in homeless situation. And the only way, sir, that this government can address that, if they were sincere about that, is increasing the numbers of housing, not only in the private sector, but also housing in the social sector. But how can they do that when it is their policy to sell off state houses? How can they increase that supply for those in need if they're selling us state housing into the private sector? So that, sir, is the conflicting aims of what they're proposing as opposed to what we're introducing here in Part 3. Sir, unless houses are built, unless houses are affordable, the rest of New Zealand will not be able to buy into the market. At the moment, at the average prices of houses in Auckland, it is only the top 10% of income earners that can afford housing prices at those prices. But at the top 10% of income earners will not be buying houses for themselves. They already have houses. So if they're in the market, It is because they're in a speculative market, sir. And the only way, sir, that somebody on an average income of $60,000 can afford housing if the housing is more affordable, and we can do that only by increasing supply.